All right. So hello everyone to our Better Remote Working webinar from WAAT. And we are here, so me, Chris, I'm one of the partners at WAAT, and also Vamo, who is also a partner, but also
Hello.
our technical director at WAAT. And a very quick agenda. So we will start just with a very short introduction of basically who we are and what we do, and then talk about remote working culture, remote leadership, and the tools that we use. So actually starting off, we are, let me just change the slide. We are a remote only team that actually works together for, what was it, 10 years, right?
About 10 years now, yeah.
Exactly. And we're 40 people. It's mainly developers, engineers, but also product design experts all across Europe. I mean, I'm located in Berlin, and Vamo is in London. And
Yes.
we are all around. Like we have engineers in Poland, also in Germany. We're in Belgium, Switzerland. So really, really across the whole Europe. And like I've mentioned, we work like that. Like we mentioned, we work like that for over 10 years now. And what we're doing actually as a company, so we're focusing on delivering innovation and digital transformation projects for a variety of customers. So what we actually do, we're starting off with a business need, business idea that we help to develop into a reality, into a product. And we help at every stage of that process through design, prototyping, and project building. So those are basically our services. So we help with experience design, tech development, but also communication, marketing, maintenance, and trainings when this is needed. And we've worked with really many different sectors so far since the 10 years. I mean, a lot with governments, but also governmental institutions, but also automotive, education, and so on, as you can see here. And those are basically our customers, some of our customers, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have really, really like over 60 of different customers and projects that we have delivered over time. So that's about it about WAAT. And let's jump into the first topic, and that is about remote working culture. So maybe Vamo, you can jump in.
So on the remote working culture, as I've said, we already started doing this online remote working 10 years ago, before it became something widely spread. And we've learned a lot of things along the way, and there are a lot of different culture shift that you need to do when you start working online. So a few things, obviously, that are different from when you work from an office, because we all came from this usual office way of working, to going to one place, discussing with colleagues, etc. And there are a few pros and cons in both configuration that I think are worth being stressed out again. So I think that the first thing that we do not miss is the fact that when you're working remotely, you don't have ongoing meetings. You don't have set of meetings, which are usually a waste of time for the whole team, because you get things that are said that are not really focused, or which are not necessarily only for a few set of people. So when you call a meeting online, it's usually with the right people and it's for the right time. So that's one thing that I think is the main benefit, and where you save a lot of time. Obviously, one thing is, because we are in our industry, we're really task-based, so we're trying to divide the work that we're giving to people into chunk of tasks that can be processed. And sometimes some people might just be running out of tasks, but with a little bit of coordination, that's something that can be easily overcome. And obviously, in an office environment, it doesn't really happen, because you can always jump into your colleague and say, oh, I'm about to be finished with this. What's coming next? One thing that I miss from the office configuration, though, is the fact that at least you are able to solve some issues face to face. That's true that working online, it's likely not as interactive as it might have been being face to face. The fact that you have to send an email or send a message before getting an answer, that's slightly less, let's say, it's slightly slower, but you get used to it, and we will show you tools that can allow you not to have these kind of issues anymore. One thing that I do not really miss, though, in all this office environment is the office politics. You don't have anything like that. You don't have cliques, you don't have people who don't want to talk to other people. Everybody is more direct and just trying to reach out the right person to solve their problem, and that's quite effective. So what you need as a team is to shift from a process-oriented activities where you set processes and you make sure that everybody's following them, into a result-oriented way of thinking, where you say, okay, what are your daily tasks? What are you going to do this week? And making sure that the person is able to have all the resources available to make sure that she's able to solve tasks or her daily work. And in this case, it means that the management is not really in charge of organizing the work. You are helping the team to decide how they should organize the work. And Chris, do you have any questions about that, or do you want to move to the next slide?
Yeah, I think this is quite interesting to see, this shift between how it looks in the office. I think especially in cases now, right, like how it has shifted from during the Corona time when people were completely not doing remote work, right, and then had to go into remote, how this is changing for them. But this is something that we can also talk about in the next slide. So let me just continue.
One thing as well, which is very interesting with this remote working culture is, and that's interesting as well because Chris and I are actually in the same setup. That means that, yes, for now, because of the coronavirus crisis, we're working from home, but we are both working in co-working spaces. So that's as well interesting that when we say remote working culture, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to feel isolated in your bedroom or whatever. It means that you might be part of a bigger community. And that's something that is very interesting as a company, because we get as well to interact with more people this way than just being like all in the same location.
Yeah, exactly. It's also good for business, good for connections, and generally for us, I think.
Yeah, totally. So in terms of management, the shift that is required, I will go through these, but if you are working in tech or if you are used to working in like small development teams, you have necessarily heard about Agile. And this is basically what it means. I think that working remotely means that you need a small or a big shift to the Agile methodology. If possible, try to organize your work in small chunks that can be reviewed either on a daily or on a weekly basis. Try as well, even if your team is small, we think that the best way to be very efficient is to split a team into project-based teams. That means that only the people who are supposed to be involved in one specific project get actually involved in the daily communication, etc., etc. The other thing as well is you need to make sure that you've got the whole team involved into how you assign tasks, who's going to work on what, when things will be delivered. All of these needs to be not only decided by the management with the client, but if possible, you need to make sure that you get all the team involved in the decision-making process. And this means, for example, that you might get your team involved into setting up or negotiating some delivery dates, because they know better what should be delivered and when. Obviously, you've got the big picture and you're able to tell them, no, sorry, but these cannot be shifted because we need this and that. but it's a continuous negotiation process that usually doesn't take too long, and is we hardly have like any big issues because we all coming from the same environment. So there's no really big friction between, oh, someone wants to set a date and it's totally different from what has been decided with the client. And what we like to do as well is to get our client into like transparent communication. We do like a daily meeting where we report what we've been working on and what we've been doing project by project. And in those meetings, our clients are as well invited if they want to take part. And if they cannot, on a weekly basis, we make sure that they get a report about what's happening for their projects.
Yeah, I think here the communication with the clients, it's really something crucial, and I think also quite interesting to maybe say that we're working with most of our clients also remotely. So we are also teaching our clients how to work with the remote setup. In that case, the meetings that are happening in person are quite limited, only to the necessary meetings like kickoff meetings or maybe major milestones. But in the end, the communication, the tools that we're also using, are enabling us and our customers to basically work in a fully remote setup with us.
Yeah, it's very important what you're saying, Chris, because I've got the experience of like working with one client before the crisis. And because we started setting up all these tools where we were able to have a transparent communication with them, and we got like those tools where we were able to make sure that everything was actually, we knew exactly who was working on what. When the crisis happened, we were still able to keep on working and delivering the project at the same pace as before the crisis. And that was quite impressive, I think.
Yeah, this is exactly the point, like how resilient you can become while working remotely for certain circumstances.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the next part, which is like how the teams really look like when it comes to the typical traditional setup and like more remote setup, like Vamo, if you wanna.
Yes. So in the usual setup, as you can see, like on the slide on the right hand side, you are like on the top management and you try to tell the people what they should do when they should do things. And if they have an issue, as you can see, there's a bit of a silo effect where everything goes back to the management and people tend not to talk to each other. And with this way of working, when you work remotely and people knows exactly who has the right knowledge, then the communication is more direct. You don't have like a bottleneck effect where you've got like, oh, the manager is not there today. What am I going to do? No, people are able to like organize themselves, reach the right colleague if they have an issue, or being able to ask that colleague to help them sorting out these tasks before they can do their work.
Yeah, and this is, I think, this will later we can explain also when we talk about tools, like how tools can really enable this kind of communication, and they are in the end necessary for this to happen, and those kind of processes that come with that.
Yeah.
But the next step is about how we keeping the team spirits up in a remote setup. So like when working remotely, obviously it's not the same as in the office where everyone can see each other on a daily basis. I mean, we also in a way do that through those daily meetings that Vamor has mentioned, but there are other things that we are also doing and that we see other companies are also doing. Like for example, knowledge sharing sessions. This is one interesting way how to basically connect with one another, but also use it for the benefit of the company and also of other employees. This is basically learning through sharing knowledge. So here, what we're doing is basically we're organizing this sharing sessions. Sometimes it's every 2 weeks, sometimes a bit less frequently, depending really on the topics that we have. And then we choose a one topic that is quite relevant, that the person can not really random, but like a person from the team, one of the team members can actually present. It can be about a new technology that we're working with, maybe a new methodology, something new that has been done, and we can share it. But also, what happens often are basically just breaks where people can hang out and talk to one another, because it's not necessarily only the case that when you have a remote meeting that it's just a strict meeting about certain topic, but also you need to have those meetings where actually people just interact with one another, get to know each other. I mean, this just brings the team spirit up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the next part is basically the daily routine. And Vamo, maybe you can talk a little bit more about this one.
Yeah, I think that what is important is the shift as well from like organizing work for other people. They know when is the right time to work. So I think it's important that it's flexible enough so that people, if they need to like do things during the day, that they're able maybe to start their day a bit later or work later if they're more of an evening person. And that's something that is very important if you want to be successful. It's very difficult to like get everyone at the same time online, but obviously you can set up like some daily routines and say, yes, okay, we've got a daily scrum, so a daily meeting at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m., regardless of the time zone, and everybody tries to join. But then for the rest of the day, people should just be free to organize themselves. As long as they deliver and that you organize the tasks that they have to deliver in the right way, this is what counts at the end of the day. And what we try to make sure is that everybody gets this idea of not being the blocker, being the enabler for other team workers. Because sometimes what can happen is that you're thinking, oh, I'm going to do that part and I might finish it another day, but you need to think that your part might be blocking someone else's work. So that's important that when you communicate tasks, you exactly know what is the beginning of the task, what is the end of the task, and what does it mean for other people in the team. And once everybody gets into this idea of thinking, okay, I know exactly what I have to do, when I have to do it, and who's going to be the next person to jump on the task, then it's very easy to move to this like focus on delivery and not really thinking too much about how to organize things for people. And obviously, nothing replaces like face-to-face communication. So we as well try to organize those yearly team building activities, spending time together. One thing that we used to do a lot was to go to tech conferences together, because it was a nice way to get like some knowledge sharing, because we were at the same time going to a tech conference and having as well some fun in discovering another city, being able to like spend the evening with like your teammates, etc. That was like something that cannot be replaced by like remote working.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it helps also later for when you work together in the long term. It helps with the communication, because people just are more eager to talk to one another, and they get to know each other. So this is definitely a crucial part. And even if we are fully remote company, face-to-face communication, like Vamori said, it's definitely needed.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the last thing that we will talk about today are tools that we use. This is like, I think, the most important topic to start with when it comes to setting up your remote environment. I mean, first of all, of course, like if you just moved from office to remote, most important is your setup. Making sure that you have a proper desk setup with comfortable chair and comfortable desk. But this is one thing that makes the work feel like more normal, let's say, than working from a couch or a or a sofa, right? Sometimes people did it, and I've seen like lately there were even some photos shared by some friends of mine who just moved from the office. They were working on an ironing board, which is like just I mean, of course, you know, you do what you can, but like
Yeah.
this is not the productive environment that you can create. So we are working primarily with these tools that you can see on the screen. Slack we use for our day-to-day communication. We know that this is not sometimes feasible for some companies to use Slack. This is something very similar to Microsoft Teams.
Yeah.
That I think most of enterprises and bigger organizations, they already have and can use. And we have shifted completely from email communication, internal email communication, into communication on Slack. I mean, we're
Yeah.
using emails sometimes really for customer or client communication when it's really needed. But even when we are onboarding some of our clients into on projects, we're actually creating like a separate Slack teams that are allowing us, or workspaces that are allowing us to chat with the clients directly. Yeah, and the main benefit I think of Slack is the fact that the communication is quick, and you can also just set up a very quick call, or you can share documents. So basically, this is all in one kind of communication set. What do you think, Vam, of Slack
Yeah.
from your perspective?
It's actually brilliant. I mean, it's perfect just as well because you can set up what is called channels, where you can just like get, as I said before, the very important thing in the remote like working setup is to be able to be project based. And with Slack, it's perfect because you can set up channels with just the right amount of people for one very specific issue. And this can last 6 months, or it can be just a chat for a couple of hours. And once you're done, and you archive it, and it's just perfect. So I think that this level of granularity, where you're able just to reach the right people almost instantly, that's really what is making it very powerful.
Yeah, and maybe what's also interesting, like we've recently done a project where we've run actually an online hackathon with over 25,000 participants, and it was run on Slack primarily. So you can see, and successfully. So we had over 700 projects that came out of the hackathon. In the end, it was hackathon called Africa versus Virus, focusing on the African continent to fight the coronavirus. And the setup was basically focusing on Slack quite a lot. So as you can see, this is a very powerful tool, even for small organizations like us. We're 40 people, and larger organizations where you have really thousands of participants or employees or people working with you. Then we have other tools that we're using. So for example, Miro, I think it's a very useful tool, especially for replacing the typical whiteboard or sticky notes. You can work together on the same board. You have basically overview of the same way as if you had a whiteboard, and you can see exactly who is working with you. So for those design sprints or for planning roadmaps, projects, and so on, this is really a really useful tool. Then we're using Whereby or Zoom, as we are in right now, actually, when we're streaming, or other communication tools like Google Meet, WebEx for communication online. And there is plenty of tools. They do have different the purpose is the same, but they have different ways of connecting, let's say. In the end, it's when you talk. Yeah, sorry,
I
Vamo.
think no, I was just saying it's usually always good to have some kind of an alternative. So yeah, I like Zoom, but yeah, I'm always happy to have like one of the smaller companies that you've got another service in case of the main one is going down. You can still keep on working.
And we know it's sometimes when it comes to enterprise solutions, it's sometimes not possible to use, let's say, Google or Whereby like we do, but rather maybe Zoom or WebEx. As long as they are there and they can be used easily, this is really the way to go for online communication. And what's maybe the most important thing, which I think a lot of companies they don't do, is they don't turn the camera on, which is something that really you see how people are reacting. You see their faces, and it's really much more personal talk than just having the voice communication. And yeah, the last thing are basically project management tools. We've posted here Asana, but we're using also Assembla. And I think a lot of you might know also Jira and tools as such. These are, I think,
Trello as well.
Exactly. This is another one. And I think most people are already using those in one way or the other. And just maybe here we can just emphasize that this is quite relevant when it comes to work planning. Like Vamori has mentioned previously, if you want this kind of freedom of you work whenever you want to, you need to have this work properly planned, and you also don't see one another so often. So the more information you have gathered in the project management tools and tasks and roadmaps, the better it is for everyone to have the same to have alignment and to understand what are the goals that they're working on. And then we have our worthy mentions. Those are tools that we are also using for some projects, because this is also the case that for this four tools that you see on the top, so Slack, Miro, Whereby, and Asana or Assembla, any kind of project management tool, those are our core tools. And then we have our extra tools that we use per project. So for example, like UXpin is a tool focusing on prototyping, but we know that some of our designers, they also prefer to use other tools like Figma. In some cases, we're receiving also materials from our clients with other tools, so we are doing it also. And then another tool is Notion. It's just basically like if you're working with Jira, it's like Confluence but on steroids. It's just much more comprehensive and collaborative than a typical wiki, but it works in a similar way. And then we have Zapier, which is something that really everyone should check out because you can automate a lot of your even personal processes. So connecting email to tasks, to file sharing, to your social media, for example. It can be really a useful tool. And this is not only a tool for individual people, it can be used for projects, automations, and such. Yeah, so this is how the toolkit looks like. Vamori, do you have any other?
No, I think that the list is very effective. I mean, I think that you've got it, like the complete list. I think what is important always is to bear in mind that you should have like something like Slack for the direct communication, but it should not take over something which is more about being able to save the ongoing knowledge that has been created, like any kind of wiki, something where you can have shared notes, something which is a little bit more long-term than just Slack, where everything tends to be like short-term based. So that's the reason why on all our projects, we're always combining Slack with something else, which is like where we store the information on a long-term basis. Can be a ticketing system, whatever, but the two needs to work together.
Yeah, completely. That's completely right. So like any wiki, I guess, or like Notion, and this is another one
Yeah.
that could be used. But like if you're using project management system like Jira or Asana or so on, they already have that features in. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. So this is, I hope the webinar was interesting for you. This is the end of our short talk, and let's maybe go into questions if there are any out there. You can always just to quickly summarize, you can always contact us on via those emails that you can see on the screen. If you have any following questions, or you didn't have questions right now, so feel free to contact us, and also check out our website at WAAT.eu.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Vamo. Let's see just quickly if we have any questions. But we've got info from Leszek that there's no questions. So yeah, let's then see you guys on our email addresses.
Yeah. Thank you guys for watching.
Exactly. Thank you, everyone. Have a
Bye.
great day.